Thank you so much for joining me. You've put out an interesting study which looks at how per capita private consumption has gone up dramatically in the last 2 decades and is around 10,000 rupees per person today per month. Now, what has been changing and what is it that we've not been noticing in this change?
If you look at the trend, there are two things to it in consumption. One, obviously, is that if you have a very robust population growth, then that acts as a lever for consumption overall. And the second is the per capita consumption. So what we are observing is that the 2% growth in population that used to have about 2 decades ago has dropped to below 1%. So that no longer is a driver of consumption. What is happening is per capita consumption, as you rightly said, is up 8 times last 2 decades. And within this per capita consumption, I look at it, it is largely driven by discretionary. Now, discretionary means X essentials, which is basically your food, beverage, and utilities, and those kind of things, which are essentials. So that's actually really rising. And even within food, which is dropping, what you observe is the more discretionary, which is your protein food items, their share is becoming the largest, is taking away the major wallet share. So this is what we mean. And a lot of new categories like entertainment, leisure, other services, financial services, all these are really, are growing much faster than the nominal GDP. So their wallet share is really rising in the economy.
Right. So many of these things obviously have been happening steadily for the last few years. Is there anything that's standing out even within this, let's say in the last few years? And when I say few, I literally mean 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think some of the services, if you look at how financialization is happening, the financial services really taking away a lot of share, and a lot of leisure, tourism, travel. I mean, obviously, the COVID effect, but that's picking up. And entertainment, form of audiovisual entertainment, gaming, and these kind of things. The numbers that are being put out that, it's really that consumption is picking up OTTs, things like that, and mobile phones, network, data consumption. These are the new areas which are really picking up.
And the stocks that you are identifying on the basis of this are stocks which you are therefore taking a more deeper long-term call as opposed to earlier?
The new categories, for example, Zomato, is the new entity which we never had, in terms of food delivery and how people are consuming food. So that's one. Or let's say a PVR, Inox, these type of companies, travel companies, gaming companies, and Azara, those kind of things. Then obviously the traditional retail companies are also part of this, which are innovating, getting into new categories, expanding their business base, and the whole financial services space. That's the entire thing, basically. And within financial services, also a lot of these internet, which are using technology a lot in expanding financial services, they are taking away wallet share. So, that's how it is.
Right. It obviously is logical that as a country grows and its per capita income grows, more expenditure goes into the discretionary basket. And some might be specific to countries like India, some might not be. But you're also, I guess, arguing, or that's my question really, that this is secular, as in this is not going to go backwards. As in people are not, unless something else happens, people are going to continue to order on Zomato, as you said, or go to PVR Inox or the equivalent of that.
Absolutely. If you look at countries like US, where the economy is largely formal and corporate sector has the largest wage bill, and the way people spend, the share of food and essential will actually even go lower from where we are right now. And discretionary services and discretionary goods, they will continue to get bigger and bigger as we expand and become more and more formal economy.
Right. Let me ask you on the demand side. So the Indian IT sector, because of the sheer number of people it employs who are well paid, is going through a bump now, or going over a bump. Now, most big IT companies have obviously curtailed their hiring. Salaries have slowed down, which all reflects what's happening elsewhere in the world, particularly the Western world. So how is this likely to impact some of the arguments that you're making, at least in the near term?
Near term, that's a big challenge because, as you know, 40% of the corporate sector wage bill comes from IT services. And so if there is going to be a slowdown over there in terms of hiring and wage growth, so that will slow down at least in those areas. I mean, obviously, in those areas, when I mean, it will impact the overall thing in terms of growth, right? But what is happening is this whole investment cycle that we are seeing, the real estate cycle that we are seeing, is offsetting some of this slow down because we're seeing very strong absorption of real estate, especially in the luxury side. And that becomes an big, what I should say, a lot of money comes into the hands of workers who are employed in that segment. Like construction workers is a prime example, or all the people who are in the hospitality, hotel, and others. So outside, in terms of sheer numbers, the largest recruiter in the economy is agriculture activity, followed by construction activity, and followed by this hotel trade and other things, basically. IT is a very small in terms of number of people, but in terms of sheer quantum of salaries, the amount of salary, that takes away the lion's share. So it could be a case that a lot of people might see, especially in the construction, the leisure, hospitality industry, seeing some income growth, and IT you might see slow down. So it will be offsetting to an extent, but it will be a drag for sure. Yeah.
Right. Vinod, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.